Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Felicity Ezewike. On this first half, we'll be taking on the evolving landscape of artificial intelligence, focusing on development and potential in Africa. At a recent two-day Pan-African AI conference, co-hosted by the United States in Lagos, Nigeria, the U.S. pledged support for Africa's artificial intelligence AI goals, aiming to enhance cooperation and address regional challenges. The conference brought together over 370 stakeholders, and there were crucial dialogues on AI governance, safety, and applications towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. The U.S. plans to provide technical assistance, capacity building, and investment to support Africa's AI ecosystem, focusing on areas like healthcare, agriculture, and education. The partnership aims to promote AI development, address regional challenges, and ensure AI benefits African communities. Now, it is fact that African nations face unique AI challenges, including data scarcity, limited digital infrastructure, and ethical concerns. How far will this support move the needle for Africa's AI growth? This and more we'll be focusing and discussing with our guest, Joshua Okeme, AI legal tech and digital marketing consultant. He's here in the studio with me. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Good to have you. Let's start with, there's a lot of talk about how AI benefits, people that use it.
Yeah.
Talk to us in terms of how it will benefit our economic growth and development.
Absolutely. You see, AI is growing and has been growing in terms of the popularity, how much people know more about AI around the world. Some years ago, AI has been in existence for a long time, right? But 2023, last year, was the year it really, blew up and was everywhere. So it's just straight to how this can help in improving economic or leading to economic growth. When you were speaking, you already mentioned some three key areas that the U.S. is interested in investing in, which is agriculture, education, and healthcare. So I just thought of two major areas. Let me start with agriculture. When you talk about harvesting, early detection of diseases, pest control, these are areas that AI can easily come in and help. And coming in to reduce the time it takes to actually detect these things and increase crop yield. So instead of losing a lot of, let's say we were losing 50%, right? When AI comes in with early detection, you lose maybe 20, 10, or 5%. It increases the whole, what we're getting on the agriculture level. And then in oil and gas, I was just even thinking that you didn't mention that, but one thing that is key in oil and gas exploration is when the geoscientists and the geophysicists, they go to the sites to check where the oil is. With the help of AI, drones can come in, discover where these places are, and bring in the dredger, prepare the site, bring in the rig, and exploration could be done faster. So if we were producing 100 barrels of oil with AI, we could be producing in quite a shorter space of time, times 3, times 4, times 5. Because AI has already been trained with the data to know where exactly these points are, and we're able to know where our minerals, not just oil and gas, but other minerals in the area of mining, right? And the healthcare, AI helps in healthcare inclusion, right? The unreached areas can have easier access to healthcare with AI. And
there's been cases where we see drones delivering medicines and essential medical supply to communities. But beyond that, how can we actually leverage AI for healthcare? Beyond, using drones, what other aspects can AI come in?
So this, in agriculture, early detection. This is one of the things AI does perfectly. Early detection of diseases, right? Malaria parasites, there are CV models that are already being trained on malaria parasites to detect early, already been trained on different forms of cancer, already been trained on different forms of eye diseases, glaucoma, to easily detect these things early based on the data that the hospitals have. So there are research bodies, there are startups that are already collaborating with healthcare organizations, both in the public and private sector, to get this data and train models that can help in early detection of diseases, right, and ailments of different kinds. And that makes it, easier to, when maybe somebody has an issue, you go to a hospital, then they refer you to another hospital. So with AI, you can have this thing stationed everywhere, so that once it's detected, someone can be referred to where they will be treated. Yeah, that's just one use case amongst many.
Many, of course. It's just to highlight some of these things so we know what we're talking about. The conversation is always that Africa is behind.
Yeah.
AI conversation is no different. So I want you to talk to us about some of the obstacles that is obstructing adoption of AI in Africa to, intensify the speed at which we are adopting and
AI.
Utilizing it.
Yeah, so I think two things. One of them is infrastructure. Infrastructure is a major pain point for us. So we need data centers. We need public-private partnerships that will come in to bring in the infrastructure that we need, to bring in these GPUs into these data centers that provide the high compute power that is needed. If you see the way AI works, just even the one on your phone, you could tell that whatever machine is processing this thing and at what speed, is consuming a lot of power, processing power. So that is needed for you to establish an AI infrastructure. Another thing is on the AI infrastructure side is AI does not work independently of machines. We don't have most of the machines that we need for AI to work. One of the things AI needs to work a lot is cameras. Without cameras everywhere, how do you get the benefits of AI? How does AI detect things? We're talking about agriculture. We are still many, many years behind in agriculture, in mechanized farming, right? A lot of our farming is still in subsistence. So how can you get combined harvesters? How can you get tractors? How can you get the AI integrated into these machines to do what we need to do for agriculture, to take it to the next level, when we haven't even done what we need to do for mechanized farming?
What you're saying now just triggered a thought in my head, and that is the level of acceptance of AI adoption. When you talked about camera, because not everybody is comfortable with having these. This is how AI collects data. They need to see and feedback this information somehow. But in Africa, there is a hesitancy to, having your privacy invaded by these cameras. There's a limit to where some people will accept this invasion. How is that impacting? First off, do you agree that that is the case? And how is that impacting our collection of data? Because we do need data if we need to move anywhere.
Yeah, that is impacting. I agree. But I think the bigger picture is that the government needs to, and the government will, if it's going to happen, play a major role in helping collection of data happen. And they can do this in various ways. One of the ways is government has a lot of data on their side. I agree that we have a lot of digital transformation we need to do in our government system. We have a lot of data. Government can make this data open source for startups to access, to use to build these models that we need for AI. Government can also partner with private organizations, right, to ensure that this data is, collected.
Yeah, I think let me interject again. Partnership is another concern. It brings us to one of the reasons we're having this conversation, the support from the US to Africa on, improving AI. One of the things that are needed is data. What are the concerns about this kind of partnership? Because then you talk about, again, data privacy. Yes. Will people be comfortable with the fact that the US has some sort of partnership and has some sort of stake in data collection? How would this support really be to benefit Africa?
Yeah, I think this is entirely down to the stakeholders that are involved in this. I think Dr. Bosun Tijani has done a great job in terms of embracing AI from the very moment he came into office. He has done a lot to support lots of conferences, lots of awareness about it, a lot of moves in that space. So it's down to our own stakeholders to ensure that we're making the right deal with the US in terms of the support that they want to give to Nigeria. I think that is very, very important.
Okay. What is your sensing of this? What's your assessment of this U.S. support that's being talked about?
I know there's a patch.
What is your overall view of how this will benefit Africa? And more importantly, how should we accept it?
Okay, we should, thank you very much. We should accept it, with some, I don't want to say with some cold feet. We should, because of the far-reaching implications if it goes wrong, right? Data is very, very important and essential. The truth is, the AI systems that are being built globally are not complete without Africa's data. They are biased, and they need our data to actually complete their systems. For their systems to work, Africa is a big market. For their systems to work efficiently, effectively, for them to be accurate, for them to give the right results, for them to be valuable in every continent, Africa is a major one. So they need our data. There's no doubt about that. So, but I think we need to have a regulatory framework. And like I said, it's down to the stakeholders how this deal is done. Like all other things, I know there's a catch somewhere.
There is a catch. And then you see this, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but you watch these movies and then you see how, unhindered access to AI can, interfere with our natural human interaction and not always in a positive light. So when we talk about enhancing AI development in Africa, what are some of your concerns and how would you advise stakeholders to go about our adoption of AI? You said something about they need Africa's data to complete AI development.
Yes.
Is that something we should be, enthusiastic about, or we should, approach with caution?
We should approach with caution. Absolutely. We should approach with caution. And we should also make our moves to ensure that those who are working on this locally are supported. Very soon, in the next couple of years, AI infrastructure will be as important as building of bridges and making of roads and electricity. It would be that important. So I think earlier than not, the government needs to begin to look into this. I believe that we have the talent that is needed to take us to the next level in AI, right? And if the government looks into this and we support ourselves and we get support from the AU, we will be in a better position when we're receiving support from the US, if we've done our own homework. Yeah.
Okay, let's move a little away from that and talk about the education aspect and AI. Okay. Already, we're seeing a situation where people go for interviews and they use AI to respond to the interview questions. You have students in examination hall and they use AI to write exams. On the flip side, we know the benefits of how AI, but on the intrinsic values that come with actual education, doing the work, how do you think AI is impacting education in Africa? With these instances, we've seen the videos everywhere where people, answer questions with AI, meaning that that aspect of critical thinking is being somehow impeded.
It's a major issue. It's a major issue globally. And the universities in America, in other countries are already working and researching and developing tools to check some of these things. There are already tools that exist. But interestingly, I noticed that as they were building those tools, the developers are also building tools that can checkmate those tools. So it's going to be a constant back and forth, So yes, very, very important concern. The research skills, critical thinking that students are supposed to get early on, they begin to go into AI. But I think it still behoves on schools to restrict and constantly check. AI is not perfect yet. If I read an AI-generated document, I would know. Some of the kind of language you use is cutting edge. You see cutting edge. Anywhere I see cutting edge, I know it's from AI. It uses some cliche words that when you see it, you will know this is AI.
But funny enough, I have been playing with chat GTP on my phone, and I find that over time, it is beginning to speak like, write like I do. The framing of the questions, the framing of the responses,
it's learning.
It's learning. And in some areas, you say it's a great thing. But on the other hand, we've highlighted there is a downside to AI development.
Absolutely.
And there are cautious moves to checkmate that. But what should be clear ethical consideration for Africa in our quest to improve AI adoption?
Good. I think one of the things that needs to improve and change is our curriculums. We can't stop it. We can't stop students from using AI. We must now improve our curriculums. The academicians, the academics have work to do to ensure that their curriculum gets above that. The kind of questions that are asked in assignments and tests and in exams, need to be more scenario-based, more practical-based. Something that it will take somebody who has given and devoted their time to learning that thing, to be able to answer perfectly.
So we must evolve if we are to get... Okay, so that... Do we... okay, I'll just let that go and just ask, how can African nations ensure AI systems are fair, transparent, and unbiased? Because you say, I'm the one that's making it. You said something earlier about while you're developing it on one aspect, some people are developing something else to counter what you are. It's just like, when computer came, everybody was very happy. And then the next thing you heard, there is virus that crashed your system and all of that. So how can government ensure that we don't fall victim?
Great. So one of the things that government can do is to put out a very clear, like I mentioned, framework. And after putting out this framework, the next thing is to partner with organizations to ensure that the government is involved in the creation of these data sets, in the training of the AI systems that we're going to be using, to ensure that inclusivity, to ensure that the diversity of our culture, of our religion is reflected in it, and to ensure that there's no bias and there are no loopholes, in it. So these are things that are very crucial. What it's going to take to set up an AI system here in Africa would be more, because we're a more diverse continent. So there's a lot of inclusion that you must do in terms of language and all of that. So I think the government playing a role in that is going to help, because it will ensure that there is a standard to it. Once there's a standard to it, everybody follows that standard.
Specifically, we have U.S. Putting up their support. What about other partnerships, other kinds of partnership? Would it be okay for private organizations, perhaps investment focused firms, to take interest in AI development in Africa? Or it should be more of a government-driven enterprise?
So all stakeholders have to have their hands on deck. I think the other stakeholders are already interested. They're already making their moves. There are startups that I know of who are already, working with organizations, getting venture capital to move their startup to the next level. I know of two startups. There's a startup that is building legal tech solutions for the Nigerian legal system. It's called Legal Edge AI, and they're already putting their stuff together and working with investors, and they're already stakeholders that are putting their money into this before we're even talking about the government. So I know the other stakeholders are there. It's the government we need to come in. So that is already in progress.
Okay. We've talked about some of the downsides. Paint us an El Dorado kind of picture of what the future of Africa would look like. It will look like if we improve the adoption of AI?
Yes, it would lead to a lot of economic growth, like we earlier mentioned. It would lead to increase in the standard of living for a lot of people, because there are so many benefits of AI, that come in. We talk about jobs, taking jobs, but the standard of living is going to improve in terms of healthcare, in terms of the quality of food that we have.
But it doesn't take away from the fact that AI will impact jobs
It will.
availability.
There's no going away from that.
Okay, so I'm sorry to take us back, but how can we now make a balance? Because people need to work in order to eat, and we've seen a lot of evolution where people are moving from your usual 9 to 5 to digital kind of working on the online space. But will that be enough for everyone? Will the AI space be enough to accommodate the employment needed to keep people alive and afloat?
That's a good question. I think it will. And the reason I said so is that when the computer came, this was the same question. But everybody evolved. Everybody learned. And so this is a clarion call to everyone to begin to adjust, to begin to find a way to get involved with AI, to find a way to begin to adapt their workflow to AI, and include AI in it. And not just that, be able to pick other skills. There are skills that you just know that these ones are timeless. They cannot be affected by AI. So they need to begin to do that. Everyone needs to begin to do that to prepare for then, because that's still some years ahead of us.
True. I'd like to also highlight something you said earlier. It's not actually a question. It's just an amplification. When you talked about education and the need for our educators to evolve in the way they tackle question and examination for students, so that we can, how do I put it, meet up with the challenge that comes with AI adoption. I think that's an important thing to note, because I already see it sometimes. Some people want to write to you and they use AI instead of using their minds to do that. All right, as we wrap up, I'd like you to speak on how we can have a balance between AI-driven innovation and cultural preservation, because unlike the West, we have a lot of cultural practices. Like I mentioned earlier, people have this inhibition to having cameras in their faces and their private lives recorded, even though we seem to be adopting a bit of it from the West. But how can we ensure we don't go overboard and lose our identity in our quest to meet up with the trends? So
it's a total digital transformation that is coming. I think everything is just a matter of time. Our cultural heritage is still very much preserved. But striking the balance means that in the collection of data, that is only going to mean we're going to exclude some things from AI. So we have to now look at it critically and say, what's the benefits of, let's weigh the benefits of including this in AI and not including it, right? Let me give you an example. Some of our works of art, some of our, the things that we depict in movies, right, that we, hold very sacred. Some of those things, our culture, around our culture, and the things that represent our culture, if they're not included with AI, that is the fastest passport to them being left behind and being forgotten. But when we put them into AI, it's remembered forever. That is the positive side.
Okay. All right, let's talk again. I want you to, before, as we are wrapping up, I want you to have like a final reflective thought on data privacy, especially in our pursuit of AI adoption, rather.
Yeah. So that's a major concern. And we have the Nigeria Data Protection Regulation. We also have the GDPR, which is for Europe. That kind of lays a bit of a skeletal framework around what we need to do to protect our data and some of the things, the guidelines we must stick to. But I think we need a more robust legal framework for that. I think this calls on the stakeholders, the lawmakers, to collaborate with the technical minds who are building the systems. You cannot bring out a policy without consulting those stakeholders who are actually making this thing. So you consult them and you come up with a framework for privacy. It is very, very important. There's a process called tokenization, which is used to anonymize financial data, for instance. So an AI system can absorb financial data through that system, and the details of whoever the transaction would be, so it absorbs some of the values, uses it to train itself, but it doesn't take the private data, it anonymizes them. So that kind of process can be looked at and say, how do we replicate this in every other industry where we are absorbing data, in healthcare, in agriculture, everywhere, especially healthcare. With the kind of data that is collected from patients, you don't want to, there's a lot of privacy around the medical sector. So that is, and that is one of the major areas they are looking to launch AI in. So they have to really, really take that framework, the example I just gave with the financial data, and apply that across board to ensure that the privacy of people is.
I think my overview of AI adoption is a cautious optimism. Everything new has its downside. Like you said, it's imperative we invest in, protecting our data. Joshua,
Absolutely.
Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.